Crocodile Dundee, the hunter from Down Under, played by Paul Hogan, absolutely captivated the world in the late 80s. So let's take a look back and rank all 3 Crocodile Dundee movies from worst to best. Hey people, my name's Jim and you have landed on Planet Rewind, and in this video, as I do every Friday, it's a ranking of a classic nostalgic franchise, and it's going to be the Crocodile Dundee movies. Now the Crocodile Dundee movies have gotten a bad reputation over the most recent years. You know, they do get called homophobic, sexist, racist and this and that. Like on my rewatch of these movies, because I hadn't seen Crocodile Dundee since I was a kid, very young kid, like I didn't even remember it. So watching these movies, I see, and I just want to throw that in there because I only see one thing. I see the homophobia, and for some reason in all 3 of these movies there is a homophobia joke which is meaningless. It's needless. It doesn't add anything. Doesn't make anything funnier. It doesn't even go along with the character of Crocodile Dundee to make the joke, because he's a very inclusive, very kind guy, and these are very much movies about kindness and compassion and non-judgment. So those jokes really spoil. I don't understand it. I don't know why they're in it. And people, you know, they've judged these movies. I don't think there is racism in them. I don't think there is. I don't know. I'm not in a position to say whether there definitely is. I feel like the way Dundee treats other races in this is fine. I didn't see anything wrong with it. I think he's accepting of everyone. The homophobia is definitely there though in a few select scenes, which is a shame because other than that these movies are amazing. These movies are great. These movies are so much fun and I love them. And you know, if you can just take out those jokes, for me there are 3 homophobia jokes in each movie. I don't understand why they're in there. They don't even go along with the character. They're pointless. That's it. But other than that, I think these movies are great. But let's talk about the movies. Let's talk about when Paul Hogan absolutely dominated the world in the late 80s, because these movies were unbelievably successful. Crocodile Dundee took over the world back in the late 80s. Crocodile Dundee #1 was the 2nd biggest film of the year worldwide. #1 was Top Gun, but it made 328 million worldwide. That is bonkers. Like, Australian movies weren't a big thing. This took over the world. Paul Hogan's creation of Crocodile Dundee just blew people away. Crocodile Dundee 2 beat Rambo 3 at the box office. Can you believe this shit? It made $109 million. And this is even Crocodile Dundee 1. This is Crocodile Dundee 2. Made more money than Die Hard at the box office. That is absolutely crackers. In a nutshell, the Crocodile Dundee movies are about this bushman named Mick Dundee who meets this reporter Sue, played by Linda Kozlowski, and she takes him back to New York after going to Australia to study him in the first movie. And it's a fish out of water storyline, and they eventually fall in love. So that's just the gist of the series basically. So in the Crocodile Dundee 3, which I'm going to be placing last on the list in the trilogy, Crocodile Dundee has settled down with Sue and they've gone back to the outback to live and they've had a child. It was great to see Paul Hogan back as Crocodile Dundee because this took place more than 10 years after Crocodile Dundee 2. He looks older, he does, but he still carries off that charisma, that personality of Dundee. He's not as big an action star in this one because of age obviously, but it's great to see Linda Kozlowski back as his wife Sue. And, you know, they've had a child and they're a likeable couple, which I'll talk about it when I talk about the first 2. They really are a likeable couple. So believe it or not, in real life, Paul Hogan and Linda Kozlowski were married and they recently got divorced. So I'm sitting there watching it going, oh, it's great to see them together again in real life. So Crocodile Dundee 3, it's very, very daytime TV, kind of, it's more bland than the first 2 movies. It is the weakest. Basically, Sue takes a job in Los Angeles, so Dundee gets a new kind of playground, which is now Los Angeles. So it's another fish out of water storyline, but this time it's about them raising their son, and their son coming to terms with the fact that their dad has this crazy life that's kind of out of chemistry with the world around him, and Dundee himself kind of asking himself questions of what kind of father he wants to be and this and that. The scenes between Dundee and his son are very, very sweet. It's just a more syrupy version of Crocodile Dundee, so it's a bit watered down, I must say, and it's a bit Saturday morning. You know, it's more of a kids' film, But I think Paul Hogan is the key to the Crocodile Dundee movies, and to just see him still coming with that charisma, still coming with that personality, still coming with hilarious lines, such as one line where a character says to him, "Mick, were you born in a cave?" And Dundee just goes, "Yeah, how did you know?" Like, it just, once again, that lack of self-awareness gives him such an innocence, because he's never really clicked with the modern world, and that's why he's such a fun character to watch, because he's just earnest. Everything he says is from the heart. In this one, Crocodile Dundee kind of gets involved with a movie set, and that kind of conjures up some fun kind of moments, because he uncovers like a smuggling ring, and he's being chased through this Los Angeles backlot, which is kind of a fun action scene where he takes out some of the bad guys. There is some more action moments, less of him exerting himself, of course, because he's older, but still some fun madcap chase scenes. I like the scene where he controls the lions at the end to try and intimidate the villains. I think that was very good. In general, it's a nuts and bolts movie, but it's fairly charming. It was nice to see. I'd rather this got made than didn't, basically. It was nice to see a wrap up of the Crocodile Dundee character, to see him back again and still with his wife in a happy place. And these movies give you that happy feeling, and Crocodile Dundee still gives you that. So even though it's cheaper, it's more kind of bland, but compared to other third movies and franchises, it's pretty good. Number 2 on the list, and you're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe it. It is Crocodile Dundee, the first movie. Obviously, any fan of this franchise is going to say that Crocodile Dundee 1's the best. But I actually prefer 2, and I'll get to that. But it doesn't mean anything, because I like all these movies. Crocodile Dundee is an iconic movie. It really is. And Paul Hogan is an iconic character. Obviously, this one tells the story of Sue first meeting Dundee, and you see him in his element. And she meets this incredible character, you know. Obviously, in the sequels, Mick Dundee is more of a caricature, I must say, especially in number 3. This one, he's more of a real person. He's got layers to him. He's got some interesting moments, some interesting back and forths with Sue as she gets to know him, and she's exposed to this different world in the outback that he's always lived with. You really get a sense of how out of touch he is with anything else that's going on in the world. Like, she asks him his thoughts on current issues and this and that, and he just says nothing to do with me. You know, his world is just Australia, the outback. It's miles away from what she's about. And I love the kind of organic way that this relationship grows, that she begins to realise, hang on, this man can really open my eyes. And Dundee isn't just a stupid character in this movie, he's got some interesting depth to him, and Paul Hogan brings him that believability. Get inside of Dundee's head a bit more in this one than in the sequels, and there are just so many scenes that are made special by director Peter Hyman. Like when we first see Dundee exert his power over nature, he's able to calm animals down. Very charming, sweet scene. And you know, the way he defeats some kangaroo hunters, and you know, the way he just shows his capabilities to Sue, but it's just his life. And he has his conversations with Sue where he says, you know, I read the Bible once, Jesus was just a fisherman, I reckon me and God, we would have been mates. There's these little innocent sweet lines coming from this character which just make him so intriguing and so fun to watch. I love how this movie is kind of like 2 fish out of water storylines in one, because obviously Sue, when she goes to Australia, she's in Dundee's element, and she sees all this crazy stuff she's not used to, and then obviously when Dundee goes back with her to New York, he's a fish out of water. So it really is 2 fish out of water storylines in one. And this film essentially is just Paul Hogan walking from scenario to scenario, and you know, like meeting prostitutes, meeting hotel staff, meeting people at parties, and just his way of coming to terms with this world that he's never experienced, and the way the world reacts to this kind of outback bushman. And I feel this is a good film about worlds coming together. I've never seen it as divisive. I feel like Dundee, everyone he meets, he respects. Like the scenes with those homophobic lines, they don't feel in line with his character. I don't know why they're in it. I feel like this is definitely a movie that's going to grow on me over time. Maybe one day I will prefer it, will be my number 1, because it feels like one of those films that is definitely going to get more and more appealing to me on a rewatch. And number 1 is Crocodile Dundee 2, which is directed by John Cornell, who was the producer of the first film. I prefer this movie because it's more of an action movie. This is where we got to see the badass side of Crocodile Dundee. It's Crocodile Dundee versus drug dealers. Enough said. Dundee becomes more of an action hero in this, more of a Stallone, Schwarzenegger type character, but still retaining that classic personality he had from the first film, and I love that. It's the best of both worlds for me. He's swinging from buildings, he's shooting, he's stalking, he's catching bad guys, he's wisecracking. He's a bloody action hero. He's essentially a comedic version of Rambo in this movie. You know, no wonder he beat Rambo at the box office. People wanted to watch this instead of Rambo 3. Paul Hogan, Crocodile Dundee. It's Rambo, but funnier. This film for me has the best relationship in it between Sue and Dundee, because they are now together, you know, after the events of the first film. And what I like about this is I really expected Crocodile Dundee 2 to be like Ace Ventura 2, where the love interest is disappeared from the first one. It just felt like to me that Dundee would be a character who would just each time be alone, but he's not. And this is why I don't get how this can be a sexist series, because he stays with Sue all through these movies and he never cheats on her. He wants to be with her. He respects her. I don't understand the sexism here. I really don't. It's a really cute relationship they have throughout these movies, and this time they're a real team. Hector Uberi, the leader of the drug dealers, is a wonderful villain in this. He's a classic 80s movie villain. This movie does what all great sequels should, and it takes things further. We develop on Dundee's character. We see the more dangerous side. We see the more combat ready side. We see more of Dundee's skills in this movie. You know, he's messing with the bad guys' heads in this. You know, he's tying them up. He's leaving them little presents to scare them. Because in this movie, they start off in New York, but they go back to the Australian outback in this movie. So we get that element from one coming back. Sue and Dundee go back to the outback because Dundee wants to face the bad guys on his turf. So Dundee goes back to his kind of home with a real renewed energy for life, a love with him now, and more confidence. You know, this is a character that definitely goes on an emotional journey through these films and learns through these films. At one point, while they're still in New York, Sue gets kidnapped and Dundee joins up with this local gang who think they're amazing, like the top gang in the city, but really they're just kind of renegade kids and bad little runaways. And Dundee says, "Come with me and you'll be known for something." And they go and rescue Sue. And what I love is that Dundee can make unlikely friends, and that's one of the most appealing things about him. You know, again, he's unjudgmental. You know, he befriends these criminals and shows them actually how to do an honourable act, and he makes them believe in themselves. Also has 80s written all over it, with a great soundtrack, great set pieces, great action, and you know, it takes the best parts of Crocodile Dundee and combines it with 80s action movies. You can't get better than that. What do you guys think of the Crocodile Dundee movies? If you haven't seen them, which I know a lot of people haven't these days, go back and watch them. If you're someone who's going to be offended easily, then don't. But, you know, go back and try and see what I see. Maybe you'll have the experience I do with these movies. Who knows? Yeah, if you have seen the Crocodile Dundee films, let me know your ranking in the comments down below. Let me know what your favourite quote is in the movies, your favourite scenes, all of that good stuff. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for nostalgic content all throughout the week. And I will see you guys next time.